Okay, assign balancing segment to legal entity we have seen. Okay, now the next step we will see assign balancing segment to ledger. Okay, so just similar to what we have assigned to legal entity. Okay, there can be a another value in the company segment that can be associated directly to the ledger. Now, what is the use case or what is the scenario behind it is, there is a separate company code, okay, just as a balancing segment value code that you are utilizing to, what do you say, to carry out the transactions for, intercompany eliminations, let's say. Okay, so there is a process called intercompany elimination at the close of the period, close of the year generally, as part of the consolidation process. Okay, where all the financials of multiple group companies are, consolidated together, and whatever intercompany transactions are there, they are eliminated. Okay, so generally in Oracle, as a practice, what people do is, as an implementation process, there is a separate company code that is created, okay, which is called maybe 999 as the code or 888 as the code, okay, and which in turn will be named as what? Intercompany eliminations or something called eliminations. Okay, that would be the description. It is not an actual company. It is just a notional value that is created to separately record the intercompany elimination activities in the event of, to be used in the event of consolidation. Okay, now that value doesn't is since it is not belonging to any entity, that value will be added where that value will be directly assigned to the ledger. Okay, so that is how that value would be used. So since it is not associated to any legal entity, it will be directly assigned to the ledger. Okay, so let me first of all add a value under the value set for company, and then we will assign that value to the ledger directly. Okay, so one moment. Okay, going to setup and maintenance from settings and actions. Financials. And we will say manage chart of account value set. Okay, why I'm doing that? Because I want to add a value, okay, for the intercompany elimination, which is not there in the current value set. So I will first of all add it, and then I will assign it at the ledger level directly. Okay, so I'm going to setup, searching for the company value set, and then I'll say manage values. And let me search and see if there is a value available already. Okay, nothing is available. So let me add one more value that will be called 999. And it stands for what? It stands for eliminations. Okay. So the concept of consolidation, I will take it up as a session as part of the training session itself. I will take up what are the methods of consolidation, what is the concept underlying it for people who are not from finance background. How many of you are not from finance and accounting background? May I know? Anyone? Okay. So all are from the finance background. So hopefully everyone knows the concept of intercompany eliminations and consolidations. Okay. Anyways, I will be taking a session on that to explain the methodology. So at that point of time, we'll cover in depth. Okay. Fine. So I've created this value for eliminations, and I'm saying save and close. I will save and close, and then the next step would be to move ahead with our setup for today, which is assigning balancing segment to the ledger. Okay, now assign, I'll search the task name, assign balancing segment. And what is the option that, what is the task that we need to select? This one, assign balancing segment values to ledger. The second one, okay. Then you need to select the scope. Okay, the scope can be different, like many people are working in the same instance in your case, so the scope will be changed. So as and when people are going to do their setups, they will have to come down to this section, select their own ledger, okay, on which they are working, okay, as a scope. So I hope you are now aware of how to select the scope. So I'll click on this scope link. Okay, in here I will click on the drop down. I will select, say select and add. I'll go to apply and go to task, and then I'll have to search my ledger. Okay, so in this is the task pane. I will enter the keywords and then I'll click on enter, so it will fetch out the record, and then I'll say save and close. So that will select, okay, my scope, and it will take me directly to the task, okay, the page where we will have to do the setup. Okay, so now this is the page. Now directly what I will do is click on the add row under ledger company value assignments. I'll click on add. Okay, and then I'll select the company value, which is 999, which I'll directly associate to the ledger. Okay, and then I'll say save. Okay, now if you just click on the drop down here, okay, you will see the companies, okay, that are legal entities that are assigned and the company values that are assigned. Okay, these are the legal entities and the company values assigned to legal entities directly. Okay, but then below we have added a value directly to the ledger. Okay, since it is not something related to a legal entity, but it is something used as a notional value for intercompany adjustments or intercompany eliminations. Okay, which will be used as in the end, at the end of the year for consolidation purpose. Okay, so that is where this value has been created and it has been directly assigned to the ledger. Okay. So this is what the case is, and then you can save and close. So this setup is also complete. Now the next thing is specifying the ledger options. Okay, this is quite crucial to understand because there are a lot of things to understand in this particular setup. Okay, so what is it? Specify ledger options. Okay, so let us do that. Specify the first one you will have to select. Again, the scope should be your ledger. If it is not, then you will have to go inside, select it, and then save and close to go to that page. If it is already selected, it is showing your own ledger, then you can click on specify ledger options. Okay. Now in here, what you will see is the name of the ledger as you had defined it, the currency that you had associated to it, the chart of accounts that you have associated to it. In your case, it will be standard accrual. Oh, sorry, my bad. The chart of accounts, basically the chart of account structure. It is the structure that you had created, and in our case, it is ABC Corp COI structure instance. Okay, that also you had selected when you were creating the when you created the primary ledger. Okay, in the earlier step. Then it will show you the accounting calendar. That is also the accounting calendar we had assigned. Okay, when we were creating the primary ledger. Now the first opening period. Okay, the first opening period basically, okay, you will be getting it from the calendar itself. Okay, so for first period basically which you have, in your in your calendar, what is the first period that you have defined? Okay, that will be the first period that it will show as the first open period. Okay, and then the number of future enterable periods, it is by default taking as one. Okay, now what is the number of what is the meaning of future enterable periods? Basically, you are aware now that there is a concept of period which is governed by the calendar. Okay, there are periods that we will have to open and close in order to every accounting period we will have to do this activity of opening closing for facilitating the accounting entries. Okay, and for passing the accounting entries. Now there is a concept of future enterable. The what is the purpose of that is, uh, for every period, okay, there will be a future period which will be an enterable period. That means you can enter the journal entry in a future period which is not yet opened. Okay, so those periods would be tagged as a future period. So in this case, what is the future enterable period? One period that is set. So that means what? Let's say, for example, January is the open period or the current open period, and remaining all periods are closed. But system will tag February 20 as the future enterable period for Jan. Okay, that means you will be able to enter, you will be able to create entries, okay, in the month of February, but you will not be able to post it. Okay, so this facility is provided in certain cases where you have to create the journal entry in a future period, okay, for facilitating in future, such that you don't have to again create go into that particular period and be able to be I mean spend time in creation again. Okay, so in future, for your ease of activity or for ease of work, you would want to create some journal entries when you are in January itself. Okay, you would want to create something for February, but yeah, definitely system will not allow you to post it. The reason is that is not an open period. Okay, but it is a future entry. So similarly, if you have number, if you increase the number of periods, okay, in here, okay, so that many number of periods will be considered as a future enterable period by the system, and you will be able to create the journal entries. Okay, so if you, when I place the cursor over here, what is this notification coming up? Enter value between 0 and 999. Okay, 0 up till 0 till 999 periods you can create as a future enterable period, but generally we don't do that. Generally we go for 1, 2, or 3 at the max, not more than that. Okay, so the future enterable period is that many periods which will be kept, and then business users can enter but cannot post. Okay, it will all depend upon what is the current period open. Okay, current open period, the latest open period, and then subsequent periods would be the future enterable periods. Okay, now subledger accounting. So subledger accounting, the accounting method. Okay, so the accounting method that we selected at the time of what? At the time of creating the primary ledger. That is what is showing here. Okay. Then the journal language. So journal language, you will have to select what is the journal language, American English. That is what you have selected for the journal. Okay. Then we have the period close fields, fields related to period close. Okay. Now, one of the main things that is related to the period close is the retained earnings. Okay, so what is the retained earnings? Basically, the retained earnings is an account where at the end of the year, generally all the P&L items are closed and the reserve is carried out. Okay, the reserve or the profit, net loss or net profit, whatever the case is, it is basically transferred to the reserves account. Okay, in the balance sheet in the balance sheet as an item. Okay, so that basically account you will have to provide it. So in when it is a manual entry, when it is a manual bookkeeping, at that point of time we pass a journal entry manually, and we carry forward the net profit or net loss to the retained earnings. Okay, but when it comes to Oracle ERP, what happens is system automatically calculates. Okay, when you close the last period and open the next period, next financial year period, okay, first period, system automatically calculates the retained earnings, and it passes the net amount to the retained earnings account. Okay, so that is where the retained earnings, since Oracle automatically does that activity, this retained earning account is a mandatory account which is required to to carry forward and store to account the balances in the retained earnings. That is where you will have to provide this. Okay, this account combination which is for the retained earnings. Okay, so you see here, this is the retained earnings account combination. Okay, you might ask me, what about when we are using multiple companies? Okay, and then there are multiple companies like 100, 200, 300, 400, which is for multiple legal entities. Then how, if we keep this as fixed, if we are keeping company 100 as fixed, then how will system derive that? So automatically system derives the company values. But this is just given as a default value. Okay, and what is of main consideration is this one, the natural account. Okay, and the remaining, the balancing segment, okay, is automatically derived with the by the system as per the respective company segment values. Okay, then we have something called cumulative, but this is mandatory. Okay, just keep that in mind, the concept behind it, why it is mandatory, and what happens as the part of the period close, year-end process. Okay, so that is what is all about the retained earnings. Then cumulative translation adjustment account, basically, there is a translation activity, okay, that happens, okay, that can be carried out. So translation, uh, of the primary balances to, reporting currency balances. Okay, that means basically there is what, let's say, your books are maintained in US dollars or the local currency where you are located. Okay, let's say, and then you want a reporting to be made to some other international platform where you want to make your reporting, financial reportings. Okay, then in that case you will have what, you will have to translate your books, okay, to the other currency, or which is called as a reporting currency. Okay, even for that matter, let's say it is a conglomerate. Okay, it is a it is a multinational company. Okay, and in that case, let's say the headquarters is in US, and one of the entities is in India. So in the entity that is in India would be doing reporting all in INR. Would be maintaining their books of accounts in INR. But since its head offices is in US, it has to translate, okay, all the balances, okay, from INR to USD, and then finally that balance will be the book maintained in that balance will be sent to the US entity, the corporate entity, and then consolidation will happen there. Okay, so that translation, okay, that is one of the scenarios in which, in real life business it happens. So that translation, when that translation happens, there might be some uh, some balances, okay, some balances as a result of unbalanced values arising as a result of what, as a result of the translation, because of the exchange rate, decimals and all. So that is where the cumulative translation adjustment account can be utilized to store that differences arising uh, out of the exchange rate decimals and okay. Then default period and rate type. So that is again something that rate type. So you are aware about the currency conversion rate types now. Okay, so we have seen as part of our the currency and daily rates session, daily rates topic. We have understood that there is something called what? There is something called rate type, conversion rate type. So what is the rate type that system should take up as default period and rate type and period average rate type? Okay, so period and rate types are generally used in case of the P&L items to for translation, and then the period average rate type generally is used in the balance sheet items. Okay, based on that, it uses the rates to do the translation. Okay, so that is what default ones that you want to provide. You can provide at the specify ledger options itself. Okay, then prevent journal ledger period closure when open subledger period exists. So this is a control. Okay, and what does this control? So if you enable this checkbox, what happens is, I said, right, there are periods, accounting periods. Okay, there are accounting period in case of ledger, and then there would be accounting period in case of the subledgers also. Now, what are the subledgers? Accounts payable, accounts receivable. Okay, similarly, fixed assets. These are all subledgers. Okay, for Oracle. Okay, now if the periods have to be closed and opened in case of these subledgers also, because the transaction entry control needs to be done. Okay, so that is where every period, the new period is there. The period will be open for payables, and similarly, once the period is completed, the period will also be closed after finalizing all the after recording all the entries and everything. Every accounting activity has been done in the respective subledgers, and then the period will also be closed. Okay, now then finally, what happens is in the general ledger, that is the primary ledger, the final adjustments and everything will be made, and then the ledger period will be closed. Okay, so the period closing and opening activities are all done in case of all applications, all subledgers, as well as the general ledger, which is for the primary ledger. Okay, so what is this checkbox doing is, if the subledger period is open, okay, that means it has not been closed, then prevent general ledger period from closure. Okay, let's say for example, we are in the current, we are in the month of January. Okay, so ideally, what will be open? General ledger January period will be open. Similarly, payable January period will also be open. And when January is completed, okay, first of all, what they will have to do, business has to do is business has to close the payable January period, and then come to the GL, make all the adjustment entries, whatever the case is, and then finally close the January GL period. For instance, let's say for any reason the payable period is not yet closed. Okay, then if this checkbox is enabled, then general ledger, primary ledger period for Jan also will not be allowed to close. Okay, the general accountant will not be able to close the GL period also until the time all the subledger periods are closed. This is a control. For the control purpose, this checkboxes can be enabled or disabled as required by the business. Okay. Now, net closing balance journal. Okay, what is this net closing balance journal? Basically, what happens is, in case of the period close activity, the retained earnings, when the retained earnings are calculated, it is not like Oracle actually calculates the balances and it does a posting. Okay, so what they would do is, whatever balances are there in the retail, about whatever balances are there in the P&L accounts, okay, profit and loss accounts, it will just reverse it. Okay, and then store the value directly to the retained earnings. Okay, that is generally the method which Oracle does for capturing the retained earnings. Okay, so there is another option that Oracle has come up with to have a net closing balance journal. So instead of doing that kind of reversal, okay, to the retained earnings, what will be done if you enable this checkbox? You have an option to create the net balancing journal, okay, net closing balance journal. Okay, so if there is a process, or there is a task available when you do the journal entry, when you go to general ledger application, there something will be available to create the closing journals. Okay, so that will only happen if you enable this option. Okay, so net closing balance journal. If you place your cursor over there, what is it saying? Checked to enable creation of net amount rather than the accumulated balance entries. So this is for the period close retained earnings process. Okay. Then journal processing. There are multiple options related to journal processing. All these are non-mandatory. Okay. So what are the mandatory ones? The mandatory ones in order to create a ledger is what is these things, like the name anyways we are giving at the time of creation of the ledger, the number of future enterable periods, then the retained earnings, journal language. These are the mandatory ones. Okay, all the other things that you see are non-mandatory. Okay, but these are related to certain functionalities. Okay, certain activities and functionalities, these are related. Okay, so I'm just explaining quickly so that you do have an understanding of what this checkbox stands for, or what this particular column is for. And then some of the things we will definitely see when it comes to the transaction aspect based on what we have enabled in this place. Okay, so now coming to the journal processing section. Under the journal processing sections, you have multiple things. Okay, so first, related to balancing. Okay, that means balancing means the debits and credit balancing. Related to that, there are certain options. Okay, now enable suspense for general ledger and subledger accounting. Now, what is this? Enable suspense for general ledger and subledger accounting. Basically, I hope you are now aware. General ledger is the application where we have our primary ledger and all accounting data is stored, and even manual journal entries that you would pass can be stored and accounted. Okay, and then final balance sheet, P&L, everything is generated based on those balances which are available in the general ledger application. Okay, subledger is what? Subledger is basically the payable application, accounts receivable application, fixed asset application, similarly cost management application. Okay, then project accounting applications. Okay, all these are the subledgers. These are called subledgers, where basically the transaction happens and the associated accounting or financial information is stored, and finally the accounting will get passed on to the general ledger. If you remember something from the first demo session, okay, in the demo session I had explained a certain graph, how the integrations, okay, or real-time integrations are there with all the applications, and then how the balances are then finally transferred to general ledger application. Okay, so that was a brief explanation of how things work in financial applications, or for that matter in the entire Oracle ERP. Okay, related to the accounting and financial data. So what this enable suspense is all about is when a journal entry is created. Okay, journal entry is basically posted in any of the subledger, or for that matter general ledger. Okay, if the entry is unbalanced, so as an ideal rule, what is the case? The journal entry should always be balanced, right? The debits should always be equal to credits. Okay, that is the basic fundamental fundamental about the journal entry. Okay, so if that doesn't happen, okay, if the for any reason if the journal entry is unbalanced, okay, then should system automatically post it to the suspense account or not? Okay, suspense account is kind of a temporary account, which under which the balances are placed until the time it is recognized where exactly the balance need to be posted. Okay, so suspense account is that account. So should, if you want Oracle to directly post the unbalanced value to the suspense account, then you will have to enable these options. Okay, enable suspense for general ledger and for subledger accounting. If you want that a suspense account automatically to be done in case of general ledger, then you can enable it for general ledger. But if you want to do it also in case of subledger accounting, then you will have to enable this. So this is again a feature that is enabled based on the business requirement. Okay. Now, if you enable this, you will have to provide the default suspense account also. Okay, that suspense account combination where basically the suspense account should be recorded. Okay, that account also you will have to provide the default combination. Okay, if you enable it, if you enable this facility. Okay, rounding account is basically again in case of conversion rates. Okay, that means when a transaction is entered, foreign currency transaction is entered. Okay, and there is an exchange rate decimal. Okay, decimal thing coming up. Okay, now that needs to be rounded off, or for that matter when any other kind of activities are performed on a particular transaction. Okay, out of which certain decimal around think decimal differences or decimal differences arise and it causes an unbalanced journal entry, then the rounding of that can be done in the rounding account. So for balancing activity of rounding of certain decimal dust, you can say the rounding account can be entered, and then system will automatically round it out to that particular and balance out the journal entry to this rounding account. Okay, if you provide the default value. If you don't provide the default value, then the rounding will not happen, and it will say it is a unbalanced journal entry. Okay, so that is where you can enter, you can choose to enter this particular account as a setup. Now entered currency balancing account. Okay, now there is a concept of entered currency and accounted currency. Okay, so I hope you understand what an entered currency is and an accounted currency is. Accounted currency is nothing but our primary ledger currency, basically under in which the accounting happens. So this is also called as what? The accounting currency, the primary ledger currency. Okay, now what is an entered currency? Entered currency is basically in case of the significance of it is in case of foreign currency journal entries. Okay, so in case of foreign currency transactions or foreign currency journal entries, the foreign currency would be the entered currency. Okay, and then when the entered currency is there, okay, and let's say for example you don't have a balanced journal in case of the entered currency. That means, let's say, for example, this is USD, right? So I'm entering a transaction or I'm entering a journal entry in INR. Okay, so I enter the INR line for debit, and then I don't enter the INR line for credit line, INR credit line. Then what happens is there is actually unbalanced journal as part of the entered currency. In the entered currency, there is the journal is unbalanced. Now, if that balancing needs to happen, okay, in the entered currency, then you will have to provide the entered currency balancing account. Okay, and then system will automatically take up this account and then balance out the balance out the journal in the entered currency. Okay, suspense accounting is for the accounted currency. Okay, accounting currency, but entered currency balancing account is for the entered currency mismatches and entered currency unbalanced journal. Okay, in that case, this is the account that will be taken out. So this you can give it as a default combination. So let me provide it, and then when we do the journal entry at that time, we will take up a case to see what is the impact of this. So I am giving the value. So the scenario will be more clear when you actually do this journal entry, take up a scenario like that in the journal entry, and then you post the journal entry. At that point of time, we will see what exactly is the impact of this setup. Let me put it in some clearing account. Take it as a clearing account. Okay. Okay, that value is not available. For time being, I am putting it into a clearing account. Okay, let's say this is the account I am taking, where I'm saying that the entered currency balancing should happen. Ideally, in a actual business scenario, there should be an account for entered currency balancing. Okay, the natural account should indicate that it is what it is, a currency balancing account. Okay, right now it is not available in the chart of account that I have loaded. In your case, it will be available. Okay, so let me open the rapid implementation sheet. So in the rapid implementation sheet, in the natural account tab, you will find, if you search, okay, what is it? Yeah, so this is the one. So this is the account which you will have. So rounding. Okay, so this is a loss. Basically, you record it as a loss or an expense, and you will have it as a rounding balance adjustment. Okay, so this is the account which is there, which will be available to you and which you can in turn utilize. Okay, so let me say if there is a rounding account, then we can utilize it. Instead of cash clearing an asset account, we will choose some expense account. Rounding might be available. These are all expense accounts. Let's see. Okay, it's not there. So I'll just utilize maybe this account. Other operating expense. Okay. In your case, you will have it, but in my case, I'm just taking one account as a sample. Okay, whatever the account is available. Okay. Now balancing threshold percentage or threshold amount. So this is kind of, what is the threshold or the limit basically that needs to be considered for balancing. Okay, beyond this percentage, if it goes, then it would be automatically taken up in the currency balancing accounts. Okay, so either as a percentage or either as a amount, you can enter it for again control purpose. Okay, then another control checkbox is require manually entered journals balanced by currency. Okay, so instead of having to go for the entered currency balancing, okay, that system automatically identifies it. And in case of manual journals that are entered, okay, In case of specifically that too, in case of manual journals are entered, if you want that, there should not be any difference, okay, between the debit and credit for the entered currency. Okay, specifically in case of manual journals. Okay, then if business wants that, it should be mandatory that all manual journals balance by the entered currency, then you will have to enable this. Okay. So how system knows whether it is a manual journal entry or whether it has come from a subledger application or whether it has come from any other third-party integrations. Okay, how would system know? Basically, there is a source tagging. Okay, from where there is a source tag to each journal entry from where basically it has originated. So whenever you enter a manual journal using from the user interface, okay, so the source will be recorded as a manual source. So that is how system identifies it. Okay, now in case of manual journal entries, when if you enable this checkbox, then system will not allow, Oracle ERP will not allow you to have an unbalanced journal entry by currency. So it should be mandatory. System will throw an error if it is unbalanced. Okay, but in case of all other entries, okay, that is coming from subledgers or for the matter coming through integration of a third party software, then in that case, it will take up automatically the entered currency balancing, and it will balance out in case there is a mismatch between the debit and credit line, okay, against a particular currency. Okay, so that is what these controls all work. Now coming to the under journal processing, there is another section called entry. Now, these are some of the controls related to journal entry. Okay, now if you want to enable the journal approval, that means any manual entry, manual journals that are created, okay, it should go through approval, or any journal for that matter, any unposted journal for that matter should go through a journal approval. Then this is the first stage where you will have to enable it. So this is the configuration to enable the journal approval. The first step. There are certain other steps which we will cover later on when we come to the journal entry approval topic. Just explaining it right now because we are in this page. And so the next time when I explain again, it will be clear to you. Okay, notify when prior period journal is entered. So whenever a previous period journal is entered. So current period as per the system is what? February. Okay, right? February 2023. And if, there is a previous period also open. Okay, that means January period is open against the general ledger, and we try to enter, okay, any entry in the journal in the prior period, which is January period, because it is open, then system should throw a notification saying that you are entering the journal in a previous period. Okay, our current period is open. Current open period for primary ledger would be February. Also, let's say for any reason, the previous period has been opened and junior accountant by mistake chose the January period, okay, for journal entry. Then system should throw an error saying, it's not an error, in fact, it is just a warning notification that, that person is trying to enter a journal in a previous period and not the current open period. Okay, so if you want to enable that, you can enable it. Okay, then allow mixed statistical and monetary journals. Okay, so there is a provision in Oracle where you can enter monetary journals as well as statistical journals. Okay, so if you want a journal entry to contain both or facilitate both types of journals, mixed journal as well as statistical journal as well as the monetary journals, then this needs to be enabled. So within the same journal entry, both can be recorded. So statistical journals are what? It is to record certain statistics. Okay, like head count is a statistic, right? Similarly, area of a particular facility, it is the statistics. Okay, so basically the area occupied by multiple departments within a same building. So that is again a statistics. So that kind of statistical journals also can be entered, or both together. Monetary journal is nothing but what we enter for the actual accounting data. But statistical also, if you want to include in the same journal entry and system should allow it, then you will have to enable this. Otherwise, you cannot club everything together when you create a journal entry. Okay, limit a journal to a single entry, single currency. That means whether system should allow you to have multiple, allow multiple currency within a same journal, or should you not be allowed to do that. Only one single currency should be used per journal entry. Okay, so that is the checkbox. So this is the checkbox that governs it. So if you enable this, only one currency at a time would be used to enter a journal. Multiple currencies cannot be entered. Okay, I'm not enabling it. So I will show you when we go to the journal entry creation part. That time I will show you how the impact of this is. Okay, by coming back to this and re-enabling and trying to show you what is the impact of it. Okay. So I would stop with that and I will cover the remaining part tomorrow. So you already have a lot of things to, understand. So just go through this video, try to understand the concept, and then let me know if you have any confusions related to it. Okay. Any quick questions if you have, you can ask, or else we can wrap up for today. Any questions?
No, Chandu. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Go through the video. Definitely, once you go through the video, you still will have some confusions or some questions might pop up. So you can ask tomorrow in the beginning. Okay. That's it, guys. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.